Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to you, you thirsty bunch of beer drinkers, whenever and wherever you're tuning in from. Episode 21. We're recording episode 21 today. To me, it's hard to believe. I was talking to one of my colleagues, and they were saying, so why did you guys start this podcast again? And it was February 1987, February 12th, 1987. Great Lakes was incorporated, and on our 37th birthday this year, we decided, why not? No other breweries doing it. Let's do a podcast. But it wasn't just about a Great Lakes podcast. It was to talk about voices and to talk with people that have made a huge impact in the industry and continue to do so. So it's been so much fun. It's been so rewarding to talk to the amazing people that we've had on the show to date, like the last episode with Aaron Prothro from Mascot. That was such a great episode. We learned a lot about Mascot and about Aaron himself and what he's accomplished in this industry. And it's been so great to enjoy some beer together with these folks. And if you've been enjoying the show, I kindly ask to go over and leave a review or a rating wherever you're tuning in from. It really helps. It helps move the needle of people finding us on their platform. So that'd be really great if you could do so. Now, as I mentioned, it's really great that Great Lakes is allowing me to do this, but it's really great to talk to the people who have done so much in this industry. And this is going to be a tough podcast to record because my guest has accomplished so much, has done so many things. I don't even know where to begin with our guest. And his name is Mr. Paul Dickey. He has been in beer for 38 years, and he submitted a bio to me to help me out with this. So I'm just going to parse it for the listeners here. Paul began brewing in 1986. That's a long time ago. It's almost as old as I am. By 1987, the Great Canadian Homebrew Competition, Paul was ready to enter, and he won 4 damn medals, including the Best of Show. He then, just not to sit on his laurels, he incorporated the Canadian Amateur Brewers Association, CABA, and served as president for several years. And I can remember CABA when I got into beer. He also started Judge Beer back in the 1980s, and he took the Beer Judge Certification Program, and now he is a Grand Master Level 1 judge with the BJCP. And I've worked with Paul over the years at the Canadian Brewing Awards in my past life, where he would organize and do all the stewarding of that awards show. In the late 1980s, he also started an informal apprenticeship with Michael Hancock at Denison's Brewing Company. And I've seen pictures where he dressed up as Michael Hancock, and that was a pretty good one. And I've seen some pictures of Paul wearing suspenders and a mustache. So I'm going to have to talk to him about that today. So Paul, though, was doing all this while he was working for the Ministry of Health. And in 1999, I guess he had an early retirement. He didn't want to do it anymore. We'll ask him about that. But he became the brewer at Pepperwood Bistro and Brewery in Burlington, Ontario, and head brewer at the Black Oak Brewing Company in Oakville. Yes, Black Oak did exist in Oakville. That's where they started. In 2010, Paul started Cheshire Valley Brewing Co., a virtual brewery, brewing his beers at Black Oak, including the Mildly Amusing Mild, which was one of my favorite beers. But he did traditional English ales or styles, and they were available on draft in Toronto, Hamilton, Guelph, London. At the best beer bars in the province were serving Paul's beers back then. Over the years, Paul's developed too many beers to mention right now. We're going to get into it, but some like Black Oak Saison and Nutcracker Porter, Mill Street Coffee Porter, that's an interesting one, Kensignton Brewery Augusta Ale, Double Trouble Brewing Companies, the range of beers. He's worked with the Trailer Park Boys, on and on and on. Freedom 35, I love that name, and Green Bastard. So he's done a lot of beers over the years. He's written a lot of recipes that are still in existence to this day, and the guy is judged at the Great American Beer Festival and World Beer Cup, and he knows everyone. We're going to talk about Charlie Papaisen. I think he might be the Charlie Papaisen of the North. We might get into that later. But we're also going to ask him about the time that Michael Jackson, not the singer, but the best beer writer of all time, he once stayed on Paul's couch, maybe. But first, I'm going to crack open a Canuck Pale Ale and enjoy a sip, and then we'll be right back with Paul Dickey, the Iron Brewer. Hang tight.
There appears to be only one line on this sheet. $50 for a case of Great Lakes Premium Lager. That's it? That's the ad? Okay. Cases of Great Lakes Premium Lager are only $50 every day of the year.
Well, hello there, Mr. Dickey. Welcome to Between Two Fermenters.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
I've been looking forward to this chat for a long time. We've had some communication trying to land a date. We did it. We're here. You requested a Canuck Pale Ale for your drink on the show, so why don't you crack that open and get some liquid courage for these hard-hitting questions that I'm going to ask you today. Ready to go?
Yes.
Yeah? How you feeling today?
Oh, great.
Good.
Especially after that sip.
Good. There we go. I don't even know where to begin with you, Paul. I have no idea. There's so much to cover. At the top, I rambled on about your bio. So I think I'm going to do things a little differently with this episode. I'm going to bring up a part of your brewing career, and we'll just talk about it. But first, if you can just tell, so we talked about 1986 you started brewing, but what were you doing before you got into beer?
Buying it.
Okay.
Now, the reason that I started brewing in 86 was actually because there was a beer strike.
That's right.
And my father-in-law and I couldn't put up with the disruption in supply, so decided to make it ourselves. So I actually bought equipment and set it up in the laundry room and the house, and off we were to the races.
What'd you name the first beer you ever made?
No idea.
Laundry room pale ale, or was it an English style back then too?
It was certainly English style.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so what were you doing? So the strike got you into beer, but what were you doing before? Who was Paul Dickey before beer entered his life?
Oh gosh, a lot of different things. I was a transportation planner. I developed policies centering around disabled people, so that I developed the policies for transportation for the disabled, like the Wheel-Trans.
Okay.
I developed the policies for assistive devices, wheelchairs, artificial limbs.
And this was through the Ministry of Health?
It was through, first of all, Ministry of Transportation.
Okay.
Then later, Ministry of Health. Then in Management Board. And then Industry and Trade, where I developed an export development corporation for exporting artificial limbs, etc.
So you were working for the ministry for a long time, or the government for a long time, and that allowed you to create a plan for your exodus in 1999?
Correct.
Yeah.
And just one more thing on the basement laundry room. We had to do up some plans and give them to the city for the approval, because we were doing renovations, etc.
Okay.
And they wrote right on the plans, brewery.
Really?
Not for sale.
So you actually told some city planner that you were, or not planner, but when you put in your permits that you were going to brew beer in your laundry room?
Yeah.
Okay, so that might have been back in 1986. That could have been one of the first 3 breweries in existence in Ontario at that time. There was the Atlas, I believe it was, in Windsor. That was John Downing, and then there was Brick, and there was Wellington back in 1985. So, was there one before that you recall?
Not sure. I'm not sure when Sleeman's was.
Sleeman's was later. It was 88, I believe.
And John Sleeman.
Yeah.
Is a relative of my wife's family.
Oh, no way?
Yeah.
Were they smugglers too? Or?
No, I don't think so.
I always love when I get together with John and he tells that story. And it's a legit story. His aunt gave it to him, or his great aunt gave him the book and said, "Did you know we have this long, dark secret in our past?" And then John was already making lots of money with his import business, bringing in Guinness and Pabst and some of the others. And then the guy goes on to create Sleeman and sell it to Sapporo, and now he's doing a whiskey, and it's just a great story all around. But
yeah, it's interesting. Something else that's in my past that sort of had a little bit of a bearing on whether I was going to go into brewing or not is the fact that my grandmother was fairly highly placed in the temperance movement.
Oh. So you enjoyed the beer that we put out years ago with Carrie Nation on the label, who is one of the leading forces of the temperance movement in the U.S. and the late 1800s. So you got brewing on one side and you got temperance on the other on Paul's side of the family.
Yeah.
So
I don't observe that part very well.
No, you're on the latter side, the brewing side. Okay, so where do we want to start, Paul? Do we want to start 1986? You talked about the laundry room beers. You started brewing and you got the bug in 1987. You got into a competition, so you must have caught the bug pretty fast.
Very fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me about those first competitions that you did, and then incorporating CABA right out of the Canadian Amateur Brewers Association. So walk me through that period of your life.
Well, the homebrew shop that I bought all my materials from had, as sort of a marketing vehicle, they had the Canadian Amateur Brewers Association.
Okay.
And he ran an annual competition. And so that when I won these awards, we worked out a deal where I could incorporate it as an entity.
Yeah.
And then I took on the first president position, and we went on from there.
So was that like again, I mentioned Charlie Papaisen at the top, who a couple of years ago was one of the keynote speakers of the Ontario Craft Brewers Conference. I had the chance to interview him a couple of times, and just the parallels between you and him. I don't know if you've written a book. I know he's got a couple, but it seems like you guys had kind of a same trajectory, only 10 years difference.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So he started the American Homebrewers Association, which is now the Brewers Association, the big group in the U.S. But what was it like in 1987 to so you did that for how many years? Like 10 years?
About 9 years. And so I was at the time when Bob Ray was the premier. And he introduced Ray Days. Mm-hmm. And so that meant that I had all these days that I was having as unpaid vacation days. And so I thought I'd put them to use. And I had, by that time, formed a relationship with Michael Hancock. Mm-hmm. He had been open for about a year and hadn't had a day off because he had no backup. So we worked out a deal where I would go in on my days off, and when he became comfortable with me running the brewery, he would start to take vacations. And that only took about 3 months. And then I would take over a couple of times a year for a week or 10 days. And that went on for 10 years.
And that was called, years. What was his place called again? We're going to talk. He's going to be on the show.
Was Denison's Brewing Company.
Denison's Brewing Company on Victoria Street in Toronto. And it was like, what was the bar called? Growlers?
Yes.
Growlers. Okay. So that's what, 1990-ish?
No, it would have been probably 88.
Oh, 88. That's as early as it got. Okay.
Because I did it for 9 years before I actually took an early retirement.
Okay. So you were there. You were at one of the first real brew pubs. Michael Hancock and Ron Keefe from the Granite were two of the first to really lobby both the city and the provincial government to change the licensing to allow a brew pub to even exist in the province or in Toronto. So you were there, but you were running CABA at the same time, working for the government. What was CABA doing? Again, Canadian Amateur Brewers Association. What were you guys doing as an association back then?
It was mostly just an annual conference and competition.
Okay. And you had homebrewers and professional brewers?
No. Homebrewers.
Just homebrewers. Okay, just homebrewers.
Yeah.
And of the people back then that you met, emerging brewers, maybe, were there any that started as a homebrewer back then and emerged to go on to have a career in beer that you can recall?
There likely were, but I'm afraid I can't recall right now.
Because that was right in the era of like the upper Canadas, who a lot of the brewers that went through there went on to create their own thing. Okay, so you're at Denison's now. We get up to 1999. You're fully retired now. You took an early retirement and you ingrain yourself in the brewing industry. What's next now?
Okay, so when I took an early retirement, almost the week after that, Ron Keefe got in touch with me and said that the Pepperwood was looking for a brewer.
Okay.
And
In Burlington, Ontario.
In Burlington. And would I be interested? And I was interested and went out and had an interview, etc. And we entered into a contractual relationship.
Okay. And walk me through that. What was Pepperwood all about? What were you brewing? What were you...
Well, I took over the styles that they had previously. And then I developed some new ones as well. Mm-hmm. Started to do some events so that we would have other breweries come in. And
I remember those events, actually. Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so at one of those events, Claude Lefebvre was there,
Yep.
and he approached me afterwards and asked if I would be interested in working with them in developing new products.
Okay, so we're jumping way ahead now into the next stage of your career was doing...
Well, actually, before we get to that next stage,
Yeah.
after 3 months of working at the Pepperwood,
Mm-hmm.
Ken Woods, who I had worked with at the Denison's,
Mm-hmm. He was a server there, wasn't he?
He was a server there. He approached me because he and his partner were having, some difficulties, and the partner wanted to step back and start to make some money some other way.
Mm-hmm.
And so they asked if I would take over as head brewer. And so I did, and I took over, and instead of being paid, I wanted shares.
Okay.
And so we built up a share amount as well. And so the beers that they had at that time were a little bit ahead of themselves.
Mm-hmm. They had a lager, right?
They had lager.
Yeah.
They had a pale ale. They had a nut brown.
Mm-hmm.
And the beers were much more bitter than the public was ready for at that time. And so I balanced the beers, and immediately sales took off. And with the sales taking off, I was required to do more there as well as at the Pepperwood. And so I just had to step back, and we hired other brewers as well. And I did more of a quality control from that point on. And so I'm still involved with Ken.
I was going to ask, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
But so the beer is your second career. Like, you had a full career. And
it's at least my second or third or fourth.
Okay, so now we get to the point. You're at Pepperwood. You're consulting with other breweries on recipe development. You're also a shareholder, owner to Black Oak brewing beers, stepping back to have other people do it while you focus on the Pepperwood. That was the period of what, 2000 to
2010.
2010. So
at which point I started Cheshire Valley.
yes. So before we get that, you're doing other things in the industry then too. You started the Iron Brewer in 2010. You were a past president of the Master Brewers Association of the Americas, Ontario. Were you?
No, just a member of the technical
Just
committee.
remember. Okay. I thought you were the president. See,
No.
I got to talk to that research assistant that I have. So what were you doing then? So you're working on the conferences for the Master Brewers America or Master Brewers Association of Americas?
Yeah, the Ontario division.
Okay.
And so I helped with organizing events. I came up with the idea of the Iron Brewer. It was based on something that I had seen in the States, and it was something that was really embraced by our membership. And so...
Can you walk us through what the Iron Brewer is? And
Okay, yeah. So the Iron Brewer is basically a competition, much like the Iron Chef. You get a package of ingredients, and you make whatever you want to make with that. So you use all of the ingredients or a part of the ingredients or whatever. You come to an event, and so it's a public event for the membership, and they vote for their favorite beer. And we also had professional judges judging as well. So that we had a People's Choice Award and we had the Iron Brewer Award. And so lots of good friendships were developed through that. And Ian Johnson helped me out quite a bit with the the organization as well. And I did that until a couple of years ago.
I was going to say, the big smile on your face. I know you're involved with it a long time. That was something that meant a lot to you, obviously.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. It was just fun. It was an event that brought people together.
Were there a lot of good beers created from?
Oh, there
from
were.
this? Yeah.
There were a lot of beers that actually went on to become regular mainstay beers for that brewery.
Nice. And so you said you just did it up to a couple of years ago. I think you handed it off to some other brewers.
Yes.
Yeah. And are you still we're going to get into Cheshire, and I know you're not brewing to this day, correct? No. Do you still get involved as like an honorary Iron Brewer?
I've been asked to judge this year's
There
Iron
you go.
Brewer.
Okay. Well, there you go. Before, again, we get into Cheshire, we're going to go back to something you just said, judging. So during this whole period of Denison's into Pepperwood Bistro, into Black Oak, you were judging competitions at this time?
Yes.
Okay. Why did you feel the need to become a grand master judge with the BJCP?
Oh, it just happened. No, I did very well on the exam. And so it was just a matter of you accumulate points when you organize events or you do any training or you participate in judging. And my points just built up to the point where I became grandmaster.
So that meant you were traveling around the country doing
Not
just
a lot.
No. But you were trying to do as many competitions as you could?
Yeah. I really enjoyed the World Beer Cup. It was a good experience.
The World Beer Cup, for those just tuning in, is the big one that now, I guess it's now the Brewers Association that puts it on. Back then, would it have been the American Homebrew Association?
I think it was.
Yeah. And it brings in beers from all over the world, and they correlate it with the big craft brewers conference now. So every second year is the World Beer Cup, and judges from all across Canada, or all across North America, get together in one of the American cities, and they judge beers from all over the place.
But they're from around the world.
But the judges
actually
are from around the world. Yes, the judges and the beers are around the world, but they come to North America to do the judging. And so I imagine you've developed a lot of good friendships with international.
I have
beer
yes.
people.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you drop some people here?
No,
you don't want to do that. So Michael Jackson. Okay, let's go back to Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson was the most influential beer writer of all time, and many still consider him the most influential beer writer to this day. He passed away in 2009. It was Parkinson's. But I understand you brought him to Canada a couple times, or
to speak at the Canadian Amateur Brewers Association conference.
Yep. So you brought him here. I do recall some writing from a historical perspective where he went to like Allen's on the Danforth. I believe he went to the Woolly with the Woolwich Arrow in Guelph to try cask condition ale. So
he went to Denison's.
And so I do know there's a lot of people that were in the 80s that in beer that have fond memories of him coming to the Granite as well too.
Yeah.
So he slept on your couch?
Well,
or did you give him the bed?
I gave him a bed.
Okay. So maybe talk about that, because there's not too many people that can talk about Michael Jackson here in Canada, and the impact he had on helping develop our brewing industry back in the late 80s and the 90s.
Yeah. Well, he came, and so he was there the day ahead of time. Mm-hmm. So we had time to get to know each other. I took him to Amsterdam when it was on
Front Street or King Street?
King Street.
King in Portland.
I think it was that one. I thought, no, or was it?
They had Fleet Street afterwards. That was the big production, but it was the first one was on King in Portland.
Okay.
Yep.
Then to Denison's, and then we went home. And so at that time, I had a cold storage room in the basement in my brewery. Mm-hmm. And I had...
not the laundry room.
Not well. Vicky thought it was.
Okay.
And so I had developed this, and I had a cooling unit for it and all of that. I had taps in the door to it, and I've had all of the beers that I had made over the last year. We proceeded to go up onto the deck and consume a sample of everything I had done over the previous year. And that was the amazing thing about him. He never seemed to get any...
That's a rumor I've heard about him,
yeah,
too. Yeah, the same thing.
He didn't exhibit any sign at all of having
intoxication
had beer at all. No. So anyway, we got to know each other quite well there. And then, of course, we had him at the conference the next day. He was a very popular speaker. That people really enjoyed him.
And how important was him coming to Canada at that time of our infancy of craft beer to kind of not put us on the map, but to talk about the breweries that were doing stuff at that point?
Okay, so he wasn't as much talking about what commercial breweries were doing here. It was his enthusiasm for the homebrewers and what they were doing and how well they were doing.
Interesting. So, and that would get more people interested in homebrewing.
Yes.
Which then would correlate to eventual brick and mortar breweries probably at the time. So, just any story I can hear about those years always is beneficial to me. I love hearing stories about, because there is a famous story of him going to Allen's on the Danforth when they were bringing in a lot of the Belgian beers and a lot of, and then they had a couple like Upper Canada at the time, and him just going like, we need more of this in Toronto. I think there's a line in one of the interviews he did with maybe a guy like Robert Huey saying like, we need more of this in this country. And back then you could pick 5 places: the Academy of Spherical Arts, Say What, Granite, Denison's. And
one of the early winners in the Iron Brewer was Lake of Bays.
Really?
Yeah. And they took that product that they had in the Iron Brewer and they used it as a commercial product.
And now they're buying other breweries.
Yeah.
Look at that. Okay, so let's get to Cheshire, 2010. This is what I wrote about you in 2010. For those of you out there who don't know yet, I had a blog. Yeah, we've mentioned it here many times on the show. But Cheshire Valley Unfiltered English Mild, now available. This was done in 2010 November, this article. But I preference this. If there's one thing I can say about Paul Dickey, the president, founder, brewer of the Cheshire Valley Brewing Co., is the man is a perfectionist. Toronto drinkers have been teased by Dickey for years with sporadic casks popping up at various events, but now his beers will be more readily available. Dickey is currently brewing his virtual brewery beers, as he puts it, at Black Oak Brewery in Etobicoke, where he uses his own fermenter and oversees the entire production of the product. I think that was something you were really proud of, because at the time, contract brewing was becoming a thing in Ontario, but brewers were just brewing beer for someone else. You at that point, and you and Michael Hancock, you guys were in the rubber boots. You were up there and doing your thing, which I don't think was allowed, was it? But anyway, talk to me about those early years of Cheshire Valley.
Well, I had actually made up a pilot system at home, and I took that to Black Oak.
Okay.
And I had actually, the kettle was a stock pot that had been used at the Royal York Hotel.
Okay.
The burner that I had was from the Royal York Hotel. And I had a person make up a stand for it and all of that. The fermenters that I had were, previously they had been used at a brew on-premise place, and so they were jacketed, and they were supposed to be steam through the jackets for boiling, but I put a cooling deck in, and that's how I controlled the fermentation temperature.
So you had the fanciest homebrew system in Ontario in 2010.
Oh, I would think so.
Yeah.
And so that is the system that I used to develop new products for other people as well. And so I had quite an extensive interview process that I used to determine what my client actually wanted in terms of color, effervescence, the mouthfeel, the extent of the alcohol,
The body,
and all of that.
Yep.
Yeah. So I would take that information and I would do a test batch. And for example, working with Claude Lefebvre and the Trailer Park Boys, I did the Freedom 35 in a small batch form based on conversations I had with them. We flew down to Halifax, and I had bottles with me, and we opened them up. They tried the product, and they liked it a lot, but they felt that it was there was a little bit too much corn in it, and so
The Trailer Park Boys were that just they could pull that out, like they were that their pellets were that refined.
They were good,
Look at that.
and so it only took one more batch to hit right on the money, and we started it right into production after that.
Now, Paul, I'm trying to ask you about your own brewery, not your contracts yet.
Okay.
So let's keep focused here.
Okay.
So Cheshire Valley, 2010, you started it. Talk about the beers that you're brewing, where they were available, and why you're not doing it anymore. So 3 questions.
Okay, so I did a whole range of English-style beers.
The mild was amazing. Just
Mild, pale
porter.
ales, robust porter, stout. I I did a lager as well, but that I preferred the ales.
I don't remember you doing a lager.
No, well,
See, this is what the show's all about. We learn something new.
and so anyway, my beers I did under the Black Oak license, and so it was distributed by them, and so I let them try to sell it for me.
So it was essentially Cheshire Valley was an offshoot of the Black Oak
It was a subset. Yeah.
subset. Yeah. Okay. And you had a lot of success for staying small.
Yeah.
You were in the best beer bars in Ontario. People sought your beers out, and I think I can remember recalling something like, "Oh, we're gonna have 30 liters available, and that's it." And when it was out, it was out. And you're like, "Oh, if I brew it again, I brew it again." What were you thinking back then when it was like you didn't want world domination? I keep referring to that to people that just like to stay status quo. But so you're brewing beers you wanted to drink, and you would only do one batch, and then whatever was whatever. Why didn't you just keep like mild just going all the time?
Oh, because I thought that people needed variety.
There you go. Okay,
And I needed variety as well because I was drinking my own product.
As one should. As I finish that
and enjoying it a lot.
pale ale.
Yeah. So I guess the whole Cheshire Valley evolved because of the connection with Claude.
Yeah, it evolved because of the connection.
Yeah, because I was doing my own products, right? But then he asked me to develop something for someone else.
Yeah. I want to know why you're not doing Cheshire anymore.
Well, Cheshire was always draft beer. So COVID killed it.
COVID killed it. Bloody COVID.
And, it was an opportunity to get out from under having to do all those reports for CRA.
CRA, the Ontario government. Yeah, with the beer tax right now. So any plans on coming back?
No.
What do you like best about the brewing industry right now, that you can just drink the beers and...
Well, actually, as long as no one's listening from CRA, I
guarantee we have lots of listeners from CRA.
I work 1 day a week, basically, helping out on the canning line because I'm pretty good at
a brewery that won't be named, that's in Etobicoke, that's
at
not
Silversmith.
Oh, Silversmith. There we go.
And I get paid in beer.
You and Mike Lackey have more in common than you think. You retired and you're working for beer. He started his career by working for beer.
Yes.
So before we get into North American Craft, which is
Yes.
Claude
Claude
Lefebvre,
Lefebvre.
In Double Trouble and all that stuff, I want to just rhyme off some beers that you have done recipes for, you've been involved with. Kensignton Brewery, Augusta Ale, Black Oak Saison, Black Oak Nutcracker Porter, which at one point in the evolution of the Ontario craft brewing industry was like the pinnacle of this is the best beer on the market. And it only came out once a year.
Thank you.
Hops and Robbers IPA, Freedom 35. We'll talk about those. Stouffville Brewery, which is now called, I think it's called Red Falcon Brewery, but you created those. Pepperwood Bistro beers. Denison, you're with Denison. What other beers have you collaborated? Oh, we said Mill Street Coffee Porter at the start. What other beers have you done?
Well, we did one with Claude for the Royal York Hotel.
Okay.
And that was kind of popular and good. And developed something for Good Lot.
Good Lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Out in Caledon.
Yep.
And what else? Because there's more. I know there's more. You got a big book somewhere at home that's got, and I'm dying to see this book one day. So maybe he's contractually obligated not to say, but no, you've been instrumental over the last 30 years of doing some recipes for some of the beers that are still out there in the market to this day.
Yeah.
What is that? How proud do you feel to know that someone's drinking a beer that you developed 20 years ago that's out there somewhere?
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
It really feels good.
Yeah. That's it? You're just going to stop at that?
I'm going to stop at that.
All right, let's talk about Double Trouble, North American Craft. I'm going to insert myself into this as I often do, but we were at Black Oak. I was with Taps Magazine, and you invited me and Claude and Nathan, who is a partner then. They're not partners now, but I came over to try this new beer.
Mm-hmm.
And there was 3 batches that we were going through, and everyone was to do it blindly and give you your feedback. And I picked the wrong one because I thought it could use more. They thought for mass market appeal, it could use less. Anyway, I was at one of those tastings where you did your, here's the test batch. What do you think? And that beer went on to be called Hops and Robbers, which was the first beer that they ever released. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So walk me through North American Craft, your relationship with them, and all the beers you've done.
Well, as I said before, at the Pepperwood, we had an event where other brewers came in, and Claude was one of them, and they approached me afterwards to see if I would be interested in...
And who was Claude with at that time? Was he with Mill Street at the time? Or Sleeman? It doesn't matter.
I'm not sure.
Okay, I think he was probably with Mill Street at the time.
Could be.
That guy can sell anything to anyone at any time.
That sounds like Claude.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they said that they would like me to develop beers, and they also said that they were sort of putting other people in touch with me as well. Those other that you mentioned before, they came to me as well.
Because I think they were representing some of those brands as like
they might have been representing
like
some,
Augusta Ale. They were selling at one point. Yeah.
So, as I said, I developed a questionnaire that I used in order to try and develop the product, and so I went through this with Claude and Nathan, and Hops and Robbers took, I think it was 5 test batches before they said it was nailed. Mm-hmm. And then we went right into production. So I had to this was developed on my pilot system, which was about 70 liters or so. So I had to scale it up. To begin with, we started brewing at Wellington.
Okay. Oh, really? Not Black Oak?
No.
Okay.
And we did some at Black Oak, but Wellington we took on as the main thing. And then I had to turn around and develop it for Big Rig
in Ottawa.
And so I became really good friends with the brewers,
Marvin and Lonnie.
Oh,
yeah. So Marvin, he's gone from Wellington now. He's Newstead.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Lonnie at Big Rig.
Yes. Yeah. So we had a really good relationship between us, and when I'd have guests up, I'd take them and introduce them to these people because we had people coming up. brewers from the States, and we would take them to either big
The breweries.
and whatever. And so
you did through North American Craft, you did the Trailer Park beers. So
all of them.
What was it like working with Ricky, Julian, and Bubbles?
Oh, it's great.
And Michael Smith. It's funny when you meet him in real life. He's nothing like Bubbles, is he?
No, but so we did the tasting, as I mentioned before. We did the tasting in their boardroom. They said that they'd like a change, just a small amount, and then we went right into production. But after that tasting we did in their boardroom, then we did the podcast, and that was with them in full character. Yeah. And so I took them through a guided tasting that day, and it was great.
And so you've done how many beers with them? Freedom 35, Green Bastard. Let me go to my crack sheet.
Oh, there were at least 5, if not 6.
A bunch. And so that's not happening anymore because the brewery the company is no longer?
Someone took over some of North American Craft stuff, but I'm not sure.
You're
who,
not involved.
And I'm not involved. Yeah, okay. No, I was getting
So
paid.
no hard, big hitting questions here like, what are you doing now for these guys? We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I was getting paid on a royalty basis, and but the contract that I had with North American Craft was that should that company be sold, then my royalties were over.
Okay. So we have a couple questions from fans. Actually, no, this is my show. This is the Great Lakes show. I'm going to ask you one other question. Cheshire Valley, what's the name mean? Because I don't know.
It was the street I lived on.
Easy. All right.
And it's also a good brewing district in England, right?
Okay. Yeah. Tell me about the brewing district.
I have no idea.
Okay.
I just know that it is.
It is.
Well, there are a few districts that aren't good brewing districts in England.
But that one is. So this is a question from your fans. So Troy asks, that's me, name some of the breweries that you've done some collaborations with that aren't your beers.
Okay. I've done 2 collaborations.
That's it. In your 38 years of beer.
That's right.
2. Wow. So who are the lucky 2?
Well, actually, the first one I did was with Jordan St. John.
Okay.
And Jordan had this idea that he'd like to have sort of a wheat beer with sumac.
A wheat beer with sumac.
And so he collected all the sumac and then we got together one day and made this beer, and it was actually quite good.
And where did that beer debut? I'm going to guess back when Burger Bar.
Yeah, I think there might have been the Granite as well.
The Granite, okay. And what's the other one?
The other one was a stout, and I developed the recipe, but it was a 3-way collaboration. It was a collaboration between Cheshire Valley, Black Oak with Adrian Popovitz,
okay,
and Great Lakes with Mike Lackey.
Oh, that's how I tied the 2 together. Oh, 3 together, yeah. What was the name of that beer? Well, because I know the story. You told me the story, but
okay. So we had the brew day, and we were doing this on the small system, which was about
same as yours.
Hectoliter.
It was a 70 liters. If we got that out of it, yeah.
So it was a stout that had used anise in it, and anise really gives a nice kick to the flavor of the stout, and so. We finished the batch, and then the 3 of us had to decide a name for it in order for it to be sold. And of course, there was quite an age difference between myself and the other 2. And so my natural naming of this would have been Anise in Wonderland. And that seemed
good name.
Good name, yeah. And they had no idea. But
so they're older than you think. You give them credit for it.
And so they thought Anise in Chains. And I had never heard of Alice in Chains.
Which worked and which worked.
That's what it ended up being, 2-1. And so.
And I know this is going to be a humble brag for you, I think, but this isn't a question from a fan, but it's a question from a lot of breweries, or not even a question. It's a statement I'm making on behalf of a lot of breweries. You have been an inspiration for a lot of brewers in this province.
Really?
You know that. What does it feel like to know that your name is right up there with like the John Wiggins of the world, the Brickmans, the Sleemans, the Keefs, the Hancocks, that you've had such a influential impact on brewers over the years? How does that make you feel knowing that?
Well, you're just telling me now, so
it's
great. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You've done so much for judges. You've done so much for home brewers. To this day, do you still get involved in any home brewing stuff? Do you drink home brew and be like, I remember back in the day?
Actually, no.
No?
No.
So you just drink Great Lakes. That's all you drink anymore? No, very good.
I do enjoy Great Lakes.
Paul, what we're going to do here now is we're going to have another sip of our Canuck Pale Ale. So, Paul, what we're going to do now, we're going to have another sip of our Canuck Pale Ale, which is what you said off camera is the best beer you've had in a long, long time. And we're going to come back. We're going to hear an ad. We're going to come back with some rapid fire questions. And then I want, after we're done the rapid fire, I want you to just say what's on your mind. I want you to talk about what's next for Paul. What is Paul going to do next other than dress up in lederhosen? But what is, I want to hear kind of your last, what you want to say about the beer industry. So have a sip, think on that, and we're going to come back with rapid fire questions with Mr. Dickey. Hang tight.
Hey craft beer lovers, ready to show off your passion? Let me introduce you to Hop Bomb Apparel Company. This isn't just another t-shirt brand. Hop Bomb puts the same care and detail as a master brewer into every design, crafting each tee with original beer-inspired graphics, using premium fabrics and small batch screen printing methods. So whether you're visiting your local brewery, hitting up a beer festival, or just hanging out with friends, show off your love for craft beer and style with Hop Bomb Apparel. And right now, you can get 10% off your order with the code FERMENT10 at checkout. So check out hopbombapparel.ca and find your next favorite beer drinking tea.
Paul, we're back with rapid fire questions. And the first thing I'm going to do, and this is not going to be a rapid fire answer, I'm sure. It's a small picture, but I'm going to show you a picture, audience. I'm going to put it in the Instagram and the LinkedIn post and all that stuff. I'm going to post it. But this is a 1993 picture from the newsletter of the Canadian Amateur Brewers Association. I'm going to show it to you, and I'm going to say, Paul, I like this look. This nice, big, fluffy mustache, suspenders, and a T-shirt. What's your first recollection of that picture?
I have no recollection of that picture. Is that rapid fire enough?
That's someone who's had a career in beer, a second or third or fourth career in beer. But for those of us that have been in this industry a long time that know Paul, I've seen some new pictures of you recently in all this searching, and I love this picture. This is a great picture. Okay, so rapid fire. Paul, what beer have you been enjoying recently other than Great Lakes Brewery that you're drinking right now?
Well, I'm partial to pale ale. So the Silversmith Pale Ale, which was formerly Black Oak Pale Ale, and one that I had fine-tuned myself. So, which
is about 2 kilometers from Great Lakes Brewery,
yes,
just down the road. So if you're ever coming to Great Lakes, pop over to Silversmith and have a beer over at their tap room. Name your celebrity doppelganger.
Steve Gressler or Garrett Oliver.
Garrett Oliver? Like Garrett Oliver?
Oh, I sent you a photo of me and him.
Yeah. But so Steve Gressler, your celebrity doppelganger.
Yeah.
Who does he work for?
I'm not sure, but it was Sierra Nevada, maybe?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it was Sierra Nevada.
Yeah.
Okay. Name a person or brewery in the industry that has or continues to inspire you. And I think I know you're going to say a couple. So just,
well, Great Lakes anyway. I don't know.
Garrett Oliver, Michael Hancock, Charlie Papaisen.
You're looking for people rather than beers or breweries?
Oh yeah, people
People
or breweries in the industry.
Oh, Garrett Oliver still is right up there. And Michael Hancock for sure. Yeah. He's always been good for me. He's took me under his
wing, if you will.
Yes, and he is the one that taught me that you couldn't do
patience.
You couldn't do enough sanitation.
Yeah,
and as a result, in all of the years I've been brewing,
sanitation or sanitizing.
Okay, whatever. And in all the years, I have only had to dump one batch of beer.
Good on you and good on him. Looking at your bio and looking at all the things, like you won an Editor's Circle Award back in from the Golden Tap Awards in 2012. And when you say like people who inspires you or who has, there's a lot of people that would say, well, Paul Dickey's been around for a long time and he was so passionate about it. The home brewing got them into professional brewing. But when you look at, like I said earlier, Michael Jackson and Charlie Papaisen, like that's who I look at when I look at you. I see you guys on the same. You did so much for trying to elevate beer home brewing, but that turned into the home brewing movement in the U.S. and Canada. Actually spawned this whole industry. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just someone's like, I'm going to be a brewer. They became a home brewer first, and then they saw the success of other breweries like Wellington's mm-hmm. and Great Lakes, and Great Lakes was started by 5 home brewers.
Oh yeah,
so kudos to you on that. I just wanted to point that out, that it's okay for you to have some special influence in this industry. Best time and place for a beer?
Anytime.
If you could only drink one beer for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Pale ale.
Pale ale. That's it? That's
okay.
Has to be a beer.
It has to be a West Coast pale ale, and I do prefer the Silversmith pale ale.
Okay. Favorite place to grab a beer in Toronto?
The Granite.
With what? What do you? This is not on the questions, so I know you wanted the questions in advance. I'm just joking. So Granite Brewery for a beer, but what do you drink or what do you eat with it?
Oh, the curry.
Which one?
Lamb.
Yes, Paul knows it. It's the best in the city, isn't it?
Yes.
Lamb curry with a. So this is what I do. I get the lamb curry, but I get a stout to start, and then I finish with the best bitter special, mm-hmm. the dry hop.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. We're on the same. Yeah. Favorite bar in the world? You're going to say something from Denmark, aren't you?
No, Dublin. Yes. The top of the building for
Guinness.
Yeah.
Guinness.
There's a revolving restaurant on top.
And that's your favorite?
Yes.
What was your favorite Cheshire Valley beer?
Gosh, all of them.
Okay. Mild. Mine was mild. What was your favorite non-Cheshire Valley, but Paul Dickey inspired beer for someone else?
I really liked the porter that I did for Mill Street.
The coffee porter.
Yeah.
Okay. My favorite one back in the day when it was what it used to be was the Black Oak Saison.
Yes.
I used to love that beer.
Yeah.
The Summer Saison, I think it was called. Yep. Best hangover cure?
A beer.
All right.
A stout.
A stout.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Mike Lackey, if he's hungover, he'll drink 5 stouts just to get that back. So, Paul, this is amazing. I loved it. This was something that I've been looking forward to for a long time, just to put you in this chair and talk about your history in the Ontario brewing industry. And to give you credit where credit's due, you've inspired a lot of people, whether you humbly know it or not. You've inspired a lot of people. You've been there every step of the way for the last 38 years, just as long as Great Lakes has been around, 37 years. You've had a great relationship with the brewery, with Mike Lackey, with Peter Bullitt. And I think a lot of people need to hear your story and where you were and where you've come from and what you've done for this industry. So thank you very much for taking the time to come here and for drinking that delicious Canuck Pale Ale. So thank you very much, Paul.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. This is great. I've listened to several of your podcasts, and I was looking forward to this.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Paul. Honestly, it's been great. Thank you.
At Bossa Nova, we have more than 400 products you won't find at the LCBO. Our craft beer comes from local faves and legendary producers like Driefonteinen, Bruton, and Hitachino. Our wines are the ones sommeliers bring into better restaurants, rarely available to take home. We have Basque cider, Normandy cider, Italian, Californian, as well as the finest from Ontario. Next door, relax and enjoy our outstanding selection in the newly opened Bar Bossa Nova. Bossa Nova in Roncesvalles Village. We've got a lot of stuff you're gonna love.
Around the industry.
Only two things in the Around the Industry update this week, and one of them is going to be something that we've talked about for the last 3 episodes. That's the new campaign from the Ontario Craft Brewers Association. It is called Save Local Craft Beer. It launched last week. It is out there in the world. You can go to the website savelocalcraftbeer.ca and you can send a letter to your MPP. The goal of the campaign is to increase support for a more competitive and a lower tax environment for craft breweries in Ontario, brick and mortar breweries, that I should say, because we need it now more than ever. As the convenience store channel opened, which is good for craft beer and our consumers, another retail availability, we need some support. The big brewers got $225 million through the government to end the Master Framework Agreement that allowed them to expand their distribution, to allow them to hire new people. We didn't get that in Ontario Craft Beer. We need some support right now to get our beers out to shelves across the province. So one thing I'm going to say on this show right now is that we have 3 different layers of tax. We have a basic beer tax, we have a volume tax, and we have a can tax. Now that tax in that whole mess of things, you have to determine whether you're putting beer in kegs or you're putting beer in cans. That's a different price each one. We also have triple indexing, which when the rate goes up, the big brewers go up by this much, we go up by 50%. So all in all, you have to have a master's of mathematician to do our taxes here in Ontario. So we want that changed. That's savelocalcraftbeer.ca. Go to that website and help us out. And the other thing that's happened in the news, and you would have heard the episode that we just launched because it was a special one. We recorded it and we put it out there. Merit Brewery in Hamilton and Lake of Bays Baysville, Ontario, they have joined forces. And so Lake of Bays has taken over Merit. Merit's going to continue. It's just a great opportunity for Merit to get their beers out there to the market on an LCBO and distribution point of view. So you're going to hear all about that before you hear Paul talk on Tuesday. And that's it. That's it for Around the Industry. Not much has happened in the last week since we had Aaron Proto on here. So let's just finish this damn episode because it's taken me a lot to get through it. That's it. That's all, folks. There it is. That's the call. Episode 21 with Mr. Paul Dickey. Ontario's Iron Brewer has moved from the mash tun to the fermenters. Today's episode was fueled by cans of Canuck Pale Ale, which you can find all across Ontario. Are you ready for this? At the LCBO, the beer store, convenience, and grocery stores, and at both GLB retail stores. You can get it online at greatlakesbeershop.ca. And you can find it all across Ontario on beer bars on draft. You can visit the brewery at 30 Queen Elizabeth Boulevard in Etobicoke or grab some delicious eats and fresh pours at our brew pub at 11 Lower Jarvis Street in Toronto. If you have any content you'd love to hear us discuss on the show, guest ideas, or just want to tell us what you're drinking, please drop us a line at podcast@greatlakesbeer.com. Paul, it was amazing to talk to you today. Thank you very much. Until next time, please remember to keep tipping your glass of fresh GLB in the right direction. Supporting local never tasted so good.
To learn more about what's happening at Great Lakes Brewery, visit greatlakesbeer.com and subscribe to our weekly newsletter or follow Great Lakes Beer on your favorite social media platforms.